I grew up between two continents, public schools in America, private schools in India. Sneakers and sarcasm one year, scratchy wool shorts the next. I never truly belonged to either world, but moving between them taught me something vital. How to bridge divides, listen deeply, and hold opposing truths at once. That experience became the foundation for a belief that I carry into my life and work. The radical middle. The space between extremes in which real change is possible. Now, in my work, that means renewable energy developers, policymakers, and local government officials. Not the ideal mix for a fun dinner party, I'll grant you. Now, some of these folks may see a solar project as progress, others a threat. As behavioral scientist Julia Dard points out in her TED Talk, contempt has replaced conversation. Contempt has replaced conversation. So the radical middle was built on three key pillars. First, reverse empathy. It's easy to know and see why we're right, but the radical act is to imagine why they are. Second, courageous vulnerability. Openness isn't weakness. It's a foundation of trust. And third, local listening. National scale fixes often fail because we skip that step of true local listening. And in an age of outrage and algorithms and extremes, the radical middle is active, it's human, and it's hard. So let's imagine where and how we can learn to disagree better to one day agree, and perhaps even to heal. Back in the early 90s, I was a preteen American kid living my best American life. Reebok pump sneakers. I'm gonna be honest, I had the knockoffs. LA Gear regulators. Saturday morning cartoons, Super Mario. The confidence of a kid that had never really left the county line. Rode bikes, built forts, pretended to understand ice hockey. And then one day, a new student moved into town. Immigrant kid from Eastern Europe, shy and quiet with a name that looked like a word jumble. I did what insecure 12-year-olds often do. I made a dumb joke about her accent, and the class laughed. I felt that warm, sweet, fleeting glow of belonging. But life, as it does, humbled me. A couple months later, my dad barged into my room with a big smile on his face. Guess what? We're moving to India. Not spiritual Beatles hippie India or glamorous Bollywood India. This was 110-degree heat, small town India. No internet, no Pearl Jam CDs. It was just mosquitoes and a TV with 2 channels. And my brother and I took a pedal rickshaw to school, my uniform, starched white. My first assignment, stand in front of the class and recite the poem Tiger, Tiger by William Blake. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the Tiger, tiger, one of the kids interrupted, mocking my American accent. And the class roared. And that night, I stood in front of the mirror, practicing how to speak like my father. The same accent mocked on American TV back home, there I wore like armor. But the armor is never really enough. It's somewhere in that humid classroom I learned what it felt like to speak and not belong. And for me, that became the beginning of reverse empathy, seeing the truth from the other side. The Scientific American says that empathy has the ability to bridge divides and allow diverse societies to thrive. So think about a time where maybe you've unfairly judged someone, only to later find yourself in their shoes. Real change begins in the radical middle, and the first step towards that is reverse empathy. So imagine again, if you will, somebody that deeply frustrates you. You got them? Good. Now imagine their view of you. Which brings me to my second step. Step into courageous vulnerability. Brene Brown, another TEDster, says that vulnerability is the openness and willingness to be heard. It is the foundation of bravery. And she's right. But it's also the bravery to try something new, knowing that you might fail, to get off the sidelines and step onto the field. And speaking of fields, my older daughter plays soccer, and her soccer coach, picture a serious guy, a whistle guy, like a clipboard guy, demanded a lot from the girls and from us parents too. And from my folding chair vantage point, I had opinions. Some stuff he did all right, other things I may have shared some constructive feedback at a fairly audible volume. And then the day before the next season started, his daughter got into travel soccer. And poof, he quit. Us parents spent the next 48 hours cursing this man and the league and the fragile architecture of volunteer sports. And then came that email. Would any parent like to volunteer to coach? Awkward. And it was crickets. That's a terrifying job. Now you're on the other side of the field being judged, or worse, chased down by angry swarms of soccer moms and drink-swilling soccer dads, and worse yet, my daughter judging me from the sidelines. So I said, no thank you, no thanks, I'm good. Somebody else will do it. More crickets. So eventually, I sighed that universal sigh and threw up my hands. Fine, I'll help. Another dad joined me. And that first practice was chaos. Balls flying into the woods, Capri Suns exploding like confetti, a bloody nose, not mine, fortunately. And my daughter was mortified. Dad, you have to speak up. Nobody can hear you. By the middle of that season, I was running up and down that sideline like a maniac, yelling constructively. Turns out shouting in public productively is deeply therapeutic. Highly recommend. It's somewhere in the midst of all the whistles and the laughter, something shifted. I began to see what teachers live every day, caring about other people's kids, not just your own. Community. Other parents saw me show up, and my daughter saw me step into a leadership role and began to see leadership for herself differently. Courageous vulnerability doesn't always have to start with some grand leap. Sometimes it just starts with a car full of girls screaming Taylor Swift lyrics. As the consulting firm McKinsey notes, vulnerability is the willingness to be heard by others' perspectives and touched by them while still being fully seen. Google corporate employee research finds that it's the birthplace and the foundation of trust. So, next time, maybe coach the team, join that committee, run for office. Because real change begins in the radical middle, where courage and vulnerability meet. Which brings me to my final point. Lean into local listening. Now, one fine fall day, I was feeling pretty good about myself, different clipboard in hand this time, ready to save the future of renewable energy. One sheep at a time. See, sheep grazing was part of this 800-acre solar proposal in our region. The idea was you put in the solar panels and you graze the land with sheep, keeping the land in agriculture and easing local resistance. Across the country, tensions between energy developers and rural communities, like an endless family group chat you can't mute. So when this developer proposed adding sheep grazing to the solar project, I thought, this will be interesting. Solar panels, sustainability, soft, woolly PR. What could go wrong? So I found a similar project a couple hours away and organized a field trip. Developers, local farmers, policymakers, we got on a bus, and let's go see the sheep and the solar. So picture it. Gray skies, rain, boots sinking into mud, the hum of electric towers, the wet, earthy smell of sheep. And then eventually the true conversation began, heated. Well, you're against all types of solar no matter what we do. Yeah, well, you're just slapping sheep on an industrial site and calling it farming, and on and on and on. Suddenly, I wasn't the soccer coach anymore. I was the ref. So, Back home, that local project, it was denied. And most saw failure. But I saw a start. What if we tried something different? What if we listened not to argue, but to understand what each side feared losing the most? So we tried something different. At the Piedmont Environmental Council's community farm in Virginia, we installed solar panels and planted crops underneath. Lettuce, kale, carrots, celery, a bunch of other stuff my kids don't like to eat. A couple batteries in the shed back up the well pumps and the coolers, and the land still feeds the people. It's small, it's local, and it works. Maybe you're not on the sheep train, fine. Try cattle, try cabbage, but try something. Because progress doesn't always look like agreement. Sometimes it looks like soaked adults yelling across a pasture, while Gus reminds us to listen. And Gus was the sheep that wandered over to us with these calm, judgmental eyes during our argument, looking at us like, really? This is how y'all are going to solve climate change? Extensive research finds that when we truly do listen and stakeholders are truly engaged, they build trust and they build lasting solutions. So think about your world. When was the last time you truly listened? Not to respond, but to understand. Because real change begins in the radical middle. So maybe take that next debate offline. Meet for coffee, get on the phone. Listening locally isn't about agreement. It's about connection. That's where true solutions begin. Whether on a field, a boardroom, or a community meeting, meaningful progress takes time. It requires small steps with unlikely allies and even former opponents. This isn't radical new thinking, but perhaps being bold enough to live it out is. After all, a millennia of religious wisdom says something similar, right? We all know the golden rule from the New Testament. My Hindu tradition would say, do not unto others in ways that would cause pain if done unto you. So I believe that the middle isn't empty. It's alive. And what if our nation filled that space with courage, humility, and hope? A commitment to do real work. Because real change begins in the radical middle. Thank you.